Well, Donald Trump has won the U.S. election. And what does that have to do with small claims court? I've actually got 5 takeaways for you coming up right after this.
Yes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Mr. Small Claims Court YouTube channel. Grateful to have you. I'm Jordan Farkas. I'm a retired small claims court lawyer and an author of several books on small claims court. You can learn more about me on my bio video on the homepage of this YouTube channel, assuming you're new to the channel and not a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, that's fantastic and great to have you. If you haven't subscribed and you do have a small claims court issue that you're dealing with, or you feel you may have one in the future, or you want to protect yourself from having a small claims court lawsuit, this would be a great channel for you to hit that subscribe button. Definitely helps me, but also helps you keep apprised of developments that could help you avoid or win your small claims court lawsuit. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the recent Donald Trump victory in the U.S. elections and 5 takeaways that you can learn from that to help you win your small claims court lawsuit. And I know that sounds kind of funny. Like, what does the U.S. election have to do with small claims court? But there were some takeaways that I thought of as I was watching the drama unfold. Now, obviously, I want to be clear that this is not a political channel. I'm not making any sort of position regarding Donald Trump winning versus the Democrats and who I preferred or who I voted for or didn't vote for. That's got nothing to do with anything. So my commentary is more on sort of some of the things that I've perceived that led to Donald Trump's victory. Again, whether you're a Democrat and don't like it, or you're a Republican and do like it, or an independent, or neither, that doesn't matter. That's not the point of this video that I'm doing. The point is to learn some lessons from Donald Trump's victory that can be applied to your small claims court lawsuit. So without further ado, I've done my trusty, for those of you who have seen some of my previous videos, as my video editing skills hopefully improves with time, I'm still kind of like old school whiteboarding things. And I've done another whiteboard here to help keep the visual alive so that you're not just staring at my pretty face the entire video. By the way, if you're watching this while you do something else, while you're working or while you're whatever, doing the dishes, laundry, whatever the case is, any household chore, that's great too. Anybody and all are welcome to benefit from the lessons that can help you win your small claims court lawsuit. And so let's have a look at the chart here, or the whiteboard, which I've called 5 crucial takeaways. And the first thing I jotted down is that anything can happen. Now, of course, it sounds a bit trite to say that. Of course, anything could happen. We all know anything could happen, but particularly here, where you had polls calling for Donald Trump, you had polls calling for Kamala Harris, up and down. You go to one media channel, they were predicting one thing, one person was predicting another thing, predictions flying here and there. And ultimately what happened is that Donald Trump ended up winning a pretty decisive victory. And that just goes to show you that when it comes to things like this, anything could happen. And just like in the political realm where anything could happen, so too in small claims court, anything can really happen. Of course, I do these videos to help you win, but of course, nobody can accurately predict who is going to win or who's going to lose. However, it is important to realize that anything could happen in small claims court. Why is that? Well, number one, preparation I wrote down here. Because anything could happen, what's the best way to try and do your best so that you can potentially put yourself in the best position to win? Well, I've talked about this in previous videos. The best thing you can do to help yourself win is that preparation. Okay. Now, of course, in the political realm, I'm sure both the Harris campaign and the Trump campaign will tell you that they did all the preparation possible in order to win. And ultimately, one of the parties ended up winning. And the same is with small claims court. So you can have a case where both the plaintiff, the one who's suing, and the defendant, the one who has been sued, are doing all the preparation in the world. Ultimately, there is going to be a winner and a loser. Some judges or decision makers in small claims court will do a compromise. There are creative ways to come up with decision making, but generally speaking, in most cases, you'll have somebody who wins and somebody who loses. And you cannot take for granted that the other counterpart, let's say in this case, you're the plaintiff, the one suing, you can't take for granted that the defendant will not be doing preparation. So therefore, it's even more important that you make sure you do your preparation in order to put yourself in the best position to win. Of course, if the defendant does not do his or her preparation, then you're in that much better of a position to win, because then you will have done your preparation and the defendant hasn't. So that gives you a much better chance. What do I mean by preparation? Again, you'll have to look at, you don't have to, but I would recommend looking at previous videos where I discuss what that means. So for example, preparing your evidence in advance of trial in an evidence book. Okay, so having your contract that you're going to be relying on in court, your photographic evidence, the invoices, anything, text messages, emails, anything that's going to help you win your case that you're going to have to show to the decision maker, to the judge. You want to be sure that you're prepared. Also doing an outline of points, questions that you want to ask your witnesses. Again, I'm not going to get into all that again in this video, but the point is to make sure to do your preparation in order to put yourself in the best position to win, because anything could happen and you never know what the judge is going to decide. So you want to do your best to be able to influence the judge to make that decision in your favor. The other reason that that's important to know is that I wrote down here, proceed. What do I mean by that? Well, oftentimes, I talked about this in my first video for the channel, oftentimes things may seem bleak. In other words, either you may feel like your case is weak, which doesn't mean that you don't have a rightful claim, but maybe you feel your evidence isn't as strong as you'd like it to be. Maybe there are some emails that went back and forth where the terms of the agreement between you and the other party weren't as clear as you'd like. So just because you're not fully confident, and I'll get to confidence in a moment, but just because you're not fully confident that your case is 100% airtight, the fact is most times your cases are not going to be airtight. There will be various holes and points that the defendant can poke into your case that may weaken it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't proceed. Again, because anything can happen and you never know what may impact the judge in a way that you may not have anticipated. So knowing that anything could happen can work to your favor, and that you shouldn't simply walk away before you even try necessarily. Again, look to my first video to learn more about that. There's various considerations like a limitation period and what sort of assets that the defendant potentially has. But the point is that you never know. So you may be going up against a defendant who maybe you feel doesn't have any assets, you can't find any property in his or her name or anything like that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't necessarily sue, because anything could happen that could work in your favor. Now, contrast that with the more negative aspect of anything could happen, which means because anything could happen and you may not succeed, you should always consider settlement. Okay, now that's not a Debbie Downer type of message. That's more of a pragmatic message to know that because you're relying on a judge to make that decision, he or she may not see things the way you do. And because of that, you may want to be mindful of the opportunity to resolve the case before it ever gets to trial, or maybe at the trial, before the trial, to try and mediate or broker some sort of settlement so that you don't risk it all. Okay, sometimes they have the expression, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And again, I'm all for being aggressive and going after what's rightfully owing to you. I'm not saying it's fair necessarily to compromise and walk away with less than what's actually owed, but sometimes having that money in your hand can be very valuable, especially because even if you win your case, which isn't a sure thing, the chances of collecting may not be great. As I alluded to, if the defendant doesn't have any assets or ends up going bankrupt, there's a myriad of different circumstances that can occur that can block you from actually getting paid, even if you win. And that's assuming you win. You may not win. Okay, I'll have another video. I'm sure I'll have many videos on that, because I did also do mediation back when I was practicing as a lawyer, and there is a value in that. Okay, there's no weakness in mediating a resolution, even if it doesn't mean you get 100 cents on the dollar. Okay, so that's the first crucial takeaway you should be aware of when you go to small claims court, is that anything can happen. Never make assumptions that you're 100% going to win. You can be confident and be optimistic and bring that positive, good energy, but just be mindful that there are no guarantees when it comes to small claims court, just like there are no guarantees when it comes to polls and election data. Now, number two that I jotted down here is have a clear message. Okay, so I talked about confidence, and something that I feel based on what I've looked at into the election, again, without stating, who I may have supported or was or wasn't supporting, I do feel that one of the factors, of course, I don't have clear evidence of this, but it's just an opinion. Okay, all this is an opinion of mine. One opinion I have here is that one of the reasons that I feel that Trump was able to have such a decisive victory, not just a victory, but a pretty decisive victory, is because he had a very clear message from the get-go of what he wants to accomplish. Versus Kamala Harris, I feel that a lot of her messaging was kind of watered down. She kind of would say one thing and then she would say another. She had certain policy views and then she kind of, changed her mind on certain things. On one hand, she supported Joe Biden. On the other hand, she said that Joe Biden is not me. She was kind of, very kind of, some would say cynically flip-flopping, but others would say maybe wishy-washy. the messaging wasn't clear. That confident, strong, clear messaging, I feel personally, was not as clear for the Harris campaign than it was for the Trump campaign. And that ended up showing up in the election results. Tying that to small claims court, it is super crucial that you have that clear messaging to give to the judge, and you do it confidently. If you go in there kind of wishy-washy saying like, yeah, I think maybe I'm owed the money. Okay, maybe the defendant has a good point. You could kind of get yourself into a lot of trouble there when you go in there like that, because if the judge doesn't have that confidence, if you don't have that, I should say, if you don't have that confidence in your own case, how do you expect the judge to have that confidence? Again, in a future video, I have to remember to jot these down. I will talk about the idea of sometimes it makes sense to concede certain points strategically rather than arguing them so that you can look reasonable and therefore help your overall case. So I'm not saying you always have to have guns blazing, so to speak, and be confident on issues that you kind of should be conceding. And that's, I can't go down that rabbit hole now, but overall, you should have very clear messaging of what your case is about. I've talked about in earlier videos about having a very good chronology for the judge, so he or she knows the facts of your case and all the relevant dates and all the evidence put together, et cetera, et cetera. The point is to have that clear messaging and have that confidence going in. Having that clear messaging along with the preparation that I talked about before will allow you to have that much better chance of succeeding in small claims court versus going in there kind of wishy-washy, just like we saw in the results of the U.S. election. So that's number 2 on my list. Number 3 that I jotted down is to make strong alliances. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Well, many would argue that one of the reasons behind Trump's success is that he made very strong alliances with various personalities, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard, who was a former Democrat, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as well as RFK Jr., and you've got, the other kind of players, Vivek Ramaswamy, etc. But the point is that he kind of put together this A-team, at least the Republicans would call it that. I don't know what the Democrats would call it, but he put together a team of strong alliance, which I feel contributed to his successful outcome in the U.S. election. And again, how does that tie to small claims court? Well, what's very important for you to help you win your case is to have a strong alliance as far as witnesses. So, of course, the documentary evidence, the documents that you'll be relying upon, again, documents could be the contract, photographs, invoices, emails, texts, etc. That goes hand in hand with having strong testimony, verbal evidence, if you will, given by your witnesses. The witnesses are the people who have firsthand knowledge of what transpired. Now, not every case will have witnesses. Sometimes if you're, you're a sole proprietor, you work on your own, and you did the work and nobody else knows about it other than the person that you're suing. Obviously, in small claims court, that happens a lot. But in many cases, there are various witnesses that you will have who can help you get over that hurdle to convince the judge and impress upon the judge that you have an excellent case. And therefore, you should be mindful of that when you're going to trial. Who could be a good witness for you? Okay, who has knowledge of the case? And even if there isn't somebody who has knowledge of the case, I talked about this in an earlier video, maybe you want to get an expert witness in. For example, if you did contracting work for somebody, you worked on their patio, and the person claims the work was shoddy, well, you know what? You can get an expert witness who will come in and give you very valuable testimony to say, no, the work was great, and that could help the judge have an independent opinion that can put you over the top to win your case. So just like in the election where strong alliances, I feel, contributed to Donald Trump's success, strong alliances as far as witnesses in small claims court can be very crucial, and always be mindful of having a strong witness list behind you. So that's step 3. By the way, in case some of you are wondering, the positioning of where I'm sitting may have changed because my video stopped midway through recording, and now I carried on with the recording. So forgive me for that little glitch. As I said from the outset, my video editing skills leave a lot to be desired. The point at this point is to give you the best content that I can give you, that I hope you're finding help you win in small claims court, but my video editing skills leave a lot to be desired. Step 4, the 4th crucial takeaway that I find from the US election, I wrote down here, is avoid personal attacks. Okay, now I feel that in this election, something that didn't help either side, frankly, was the personal attacks going back and forth, which took away from the issues. I think particularly, again, just my opinion, I think particularly on the Democrat side, everybody knows that Trump was making plenty of personal attacks the other way. There's no question about it. But I think for the Democrats to sort of play that same game, if you will, by all the name calling that they were launching towards Trump, I don't think that helped them. I feel that they would have been much better served had they stayed on message for what their party stands for and the policies that Kamala Harris wanted to include with her platform. Unfortunately, the name calling got out of hand again for both parties, and I think that came back to haunt Kamala Harris's campaign. And similarly, in small claims court, it's no different. If you start getting into personal attacks, ad hominem attacks, as the fancy way of saying it, and you start really yelling at the other side when you're at that trial, the judge is not going to like it. I can tell you right now, it's something that takes away from the issues. If the judge starts feeling that he or she is being a babysitter as opposed to a decision maker between two civilized parties having a monetary dispute, then you're in trouble. So you really have to stay away from the personal attacks and focus on the issues. That could be challenging. It sounds easy, like, yeah, piece of cake. Well, not necessarily, especially if you have somebody a few feet from you in the courtroom who you can't stand and has owed you money for who knows how long. Okay, but you really have to be able to work with your emotions and some would say keep that in check. I was about to say, if you want to take a more spiritual outlook, I like a lot of the spiritual books out there. Some would say learn how to be centered with your emotions. However you want to look at it, whatever you kind of lean towards, really you have to be mindful of the fact that the emotions will be rising, if you will, when you're sitting next to somebody who's so close to you in court, who you perceive as somebody who's really screwed you over, for lack of a better way of saying it. And that's not going to help you to start trading personal attacks, especially if you're interrupting. Let's say the defendant is speaking to the judge and you start yelling, "You're a liar." I can tell you now that is not going to help you. That's only going to hurt your case. So just like in the election campaign, I feel that the name calling did not help either of the parties. Particularly, I feel that the Democrats lost big opportunity by resorting to the same sort of name calling. In your small claims court lawsuit, you must refrain from those ad hominem attacks, from that name calling. You must keep yourself well checked, if you will, or well balanced and centered in order to put your best foot forward in terms of why you actually are owed the money and how you can explain that to the judge. Okay, so that's the fourth part of this list of 5 crucial takeaways. And the fifth is don't give up. Okay, again, it sounds very trite to say don't give up, but what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the election, first of all, many counted Donald Trump down and out for who knows how long, many different times over. All sorts of things were thrown his way. And at one point, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I'm recording this literally the day after the election, November 6, 2024, many people counted Donald Trump down and out for all sorts of different reasons. It could be for the potential convictions. It can be for things that he said, whatever the case is, after COVID, when he was president the first time around. And ultimately what happened, Trump ended up winning and becoming the 47th president, not just the 45th president. Many naysayers were out there saying it would never happen. In fact, I think President Barack Obama infamously joked at one of the White House Correspondents' dinners that I'm president and you, Donald Trump, will never be. And that turned out to be very wrong, twice over as it happens. So never really give up. Donald Trump did not give up. Again, I'm not making a statement as to whether or not that's something I'm happy about. But the point is that one cannot, I would think that one cannot argue that he did not give up and ultimately rose to become the president once again. And similarly, in small claims court, you may find yourself in the middle of a lawsuit and the judge seems like he or she is completely not on your side. Maybe they're giving you certain scowls or facial expressions. They may be asking you certain questions that are making you say to yourself, oh my gosh, this guy does not get it. Like, what is the story? I don't stand a chance. But you know what? First of all, you don't know what's really going on inside the mind of a judge. Oftentimes, judges will ask the party who they actually think has a winning case more questions because they just want to be sure of themselves that they're getting it right. So you can't even pretend to know what's going on inside of the judge's mind. But leaving that aside, let's say you are right. Let's say the judge actually doesn't like you. You can see the judge is kind of scowling at you. So yes, in most cases, that will not be a good omen for your case if you walk into court, and that can happen. You may walk into court. It may just be your energy. The judge, you may remind the judge of somebody he or she doesn't like. We don't like to talk about those things because we like to look at judges as coming to fair decisions. And I would say the majority do, and the majority are reasonable and they take their job seriously. But some judges, yes, they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or you remind them of an old enemy, or they remind you of somebody they don't like, or some bad memory. And yes, it could be that you're kind of the underdog before you even start your case, but that doesn't mean you should give up. You should continue to be professional. As I said in the previous takeaway that I talked about, don't resort to any sort of name calling. Don't argue with the judge. When I say argue, you can debate your case if the judge will allow it, but don't argue in a personal way where you're kind of yelling at the judge or raising your voice, because that's the last thing that you want to do in order to help you win your case. But what you can do is continue to stay on point and make your case and come up with creative ways to maybe present your evidence in a way that maybe you didn't think of before, that could speak to the judge better than how you were presenting your case up until now. Oftentimes you have to think in your feet and be able to pivot from how you expected a lawsuit at a trial to go to when you're actually dealing with the human being, with the judge who's making the decision, and you say to yourself, wow, this isn't going the way I thought. Okay, let me try this approach. So just by being centered, not being overly emotional, even if you are an emotional type, which is totally okay, your personality is your personality. But by not giving into those emotions, at least when you're there at trial, don't give up by saying, oh, this judge is never going to find in my favor. I've had many cases when I was practicing as a small claims court attorney where I certainly thought that the case was not going to go well, but I continued on and tried different tacks, and I was able to thankfully pull out victories for my clients. And you can do the same for yourself if you're self-representing yourself in small claims court. Stay the course, have perseverance, and you never know what outcome you can get at the end. In any event, it definitely pays to try that tack versus giving up. Giving up has never helped anyone. Okay, so those are my 5 key takeaways that I learned from this U.S. election. Number 1, just to do a quick summary, is that anything can happen. And what I mean by that is that you should definitely do your preparation to put yourself in the best position possible to win. You should proceed even if you have doubts about your case. Subject to some of the things I talked about in my first video, I recommend that you go back and watch that, things like limitation periods and whatnot. And conversely, you may want to consider settling if you do spot some weaknesses in your case, because you could never be 100% certain of a victory in small claims court. Number 2 is have a clear message. Be confident about your case. The preparation will help you to have a clear message. Don't stray off topic or talk about things that are not relevant to helping you win your case. Always have that clear view and that roadmap ahead of you, and speak confidently in front of the judge, and that preparation will really help you. Number 3 is make a strong alliance with your witnesses, so that not only do you have strong documents that can help you prove your case, but also you can have that verbal testimony from people who have knowledge. Maybe it's an expert witness, but make strong alliances to help you come in there with a strong message. You know, there's power in numbers, sometimes they say. So yes, if you're the only one who has knowledge of the case, that may be the way it is. But sometimes you can come up with creative ways to come up with witnesses who can help you bolster your case for the judge. Number 4 is avoid personal attacks. That's a big one. Keep your emotions in check, or stay centered with your emotions, depending on the approach you want to take. And number 5 is don't give up. You never know what the judge will decide. So stay the course, come up with creative ways to maybe pivot from how you were going to present your case. If you see things aren't going well, or you feel things aren't going well, you can sometimes make adjustments midway through trial, and that can oftentimes result in victory, just like it did for me when I was helping clients with their small claims court cases. I hope you found that video helpful, maybe somewhat entertaining and interesting. If you did find the commentary on the elections to be outside my scope, I understand that. Once again, I'm not making any sort of political statement as to my affiliation or who I was voting for, or who I wanted to win. It's more just some of what I viewed as some of the factors that helped Donald Trump win, and some of those factors I feel that you can apply to help you win your small claims court lawsuit, which is my goal for this channel, to help you win in small claims court. And once again, if you have already subscribed, thank you for doing that. If you haven't, then I'd be grateful if you did. You definitely help me continue to produce videos like this for you, and you also help yourself if you are dealing with a small claims court lawsuit. Feel free to leave in the comment section below any feedback. That's always welcome. And if there's any sort of topic, maybe you have a specific issue in your case that you'd like me to talk about, and I will not be giving specific legal advice, but it may just be something that I feel that the audience at large could benefit from. So feel free to leave that in the comments below, and it may just be the subject of a future video. Until next time, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next video. Hey, thanks for watching. If you found that video helpful for winning your small claims court lawsuit, then you're not going to want to miss a future video. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. It takes a second so that you don't miss a future video to help you win your small claims court lawsuit.